Welcome, people of the World Wide Web. So it is a Wednesday. It has been another 14 days. So yes, it is back to the watch list. So anybody who does or doesn't know, this is essentially the past 14 days of stuff I've watched. Physical media, digital streaming, no movie, cinema. We don't include them in this. This is separate videos for that. So what have me, and I could include my wife because she helps me watch stuff. So I have this massive pile here. And then we have a fair few things. We have 5 things on streaming that we're watching. So first off, we'll get into one. So on Netflix, there is Department Q. So this is the whole new Budge series that I think is based on a book, essentially about these 2 cops. As they find this dead body, unfortunately, an incident happens. One is shot through the neck. One is paralysed. And the guy who was shot through the neck and his mate is paralysed basically is then trying to come to terms with life, but he's very angry. There's a lot of stuff going on. He has his son living with him, or his son from, or kind of son from an ex-partner. But the police force that he works under, they have been given a bunch of money to create this new department. And this new department and this money are there to basically solve unsolved mysteries. The guy who was shot in the neck is amazing, and what he does is kind of the detective, even though he doesn't go around the right way, and he is brought back as part of his rehabilitation, so to speak, to help solve one crime. He kind of builds a team up as time goes on and they solve this mystery. Actually, really good story. The characters are kind of great. Really look forward to story 2. They leave a lot open in regards to what happened in the beginning. There is a little bit and you will see this come up quite a few in watching stuff like these new kind of mystery drama thrillers have a lot. They bring in more main characters, and every character has a kind of secret. And sometimes, or just along this journey, you get to some of these points where you're like, I have no idea what's going on because so many people are shrouded in mystery that I'm second guessing everything. And there are a few little bits that kind of happen in this, but it kind of doesn't go too far off the beaten path. But you do kind of have this case, and this case is where it is. And I didn't see the twist coming, and I thought it was very clever. So that is Department Q. It's on Netflix. It's 8 episodes. A very fun watch, an enjoyable watch. I look forward to the second one. It is it Michael Good who was in Leap Year? He is the lead. He plays the role really well. And I say it's based on books, and I think that's great. So we'll go into the second series, and then I'll say the ones we're in. So the next one is The Better Sisters. So this is Jessica Biel and what's her name from Pitch Perfect? Elizabeth Banks. Leads to her sisters. You have Jessica Biel. She is quite a known higher up person in her company. She attends this party with her husband, and then later on in the evening, she returns home to find her husband dead, stabbed as she leaves the house. She trips, knocks herself out. The police turn up. She's then suspect number 1 for the murder of her husband. This is, as I say, you will go through the story. You meet the people she works with and partners. They all have some sort of mystery going on. Her husband was doing some stuff that he kind of come along. Her son is arrested at one point because he has some stuff he's hiding. Her sister, who's kind of estranged, who's related to her son. And that's quite an interesting dynamic that goes on there. The stuff that comes out of here. It tells a story from start to finish. It ends quite good. It's quite not your conventional film, conventional series or mini series, so to speak, but it works. I think it works really well. Again, I say it just at times everybody has a secret and it gets a little confusing, but it's a good mystery from beginning and end. Just to say the middle is a little bit of an up and down journey. So The Better Sister, that's on Amazon Prime, by the way. Sorry for include that. Right, so we will get into physical media. So first off, we start with the second half of season 7 of CSI. So this is what me and my wife are watching. We've watched the next series, which will be featured on this, and that is as far. My wife is now a bit sick of CSI, so we will be giving this another break. This was a great series to end. You have Grissom leaving for a few episodes because he had other commitments as an actor. They bring in somebody else, a small arc, which was all right, but it all basically situates on this model killer who kills people and then leaves models of that exact killing. And then it leads up to a combination story. So again, a story that you never see come in. A great role focusing on Grissom, and because he had to take that break and how they kind of lead the story with his absence, I think is all right. But then there's a package that's left for him when he leaves, and you have to wait several episodes as of a kind of arc. And I think that kind of was like, oh, come on. But I think that's good that they can keep you going mid-season of something. So yeah, so that is CSI. Great series. As I say, we stopped at season 9 or 8, and we will pick it up soon. So next up is Lights Out. So this is one my wife picked up from one of her mum's neighbours. She had a lot of horror ones. So this is essentially, you may have seen the meme or the gifs that essentially you walk around in a dark house or at night with the lights on, you turn the light off and say in a hallway you see a shadow figure. You turn the light on, they disappear. You turn the light off. That is exactly this. It is kind of a creepy figure who haunts this family, and there's reasons towards it. I'm not going to get into too much. I actually thoroughly enjoyed this. The main lady is the main actress from the 100. If you've ever seen that series, again, that's one I have to finish off. It's her brother, and her mum, and it's kind of a supernatural one, but it's not. You realise the creature isn't necessarily a creature; it's a person, and something kind of has happened to them to kind of turn them into what they are. It is very clever along the way. There are points where you think, "Oh, that person's done what," and it ends. It's only like an hour and 83 minutes or something. It does make you second guess yourself with the lights on and off, and I think that's very clever. And that, in this day and age, it does have some sort of a kind of happy ending, which I kind of like, so to speak. There was rumours that there was going to be a second one, but the director ended up doing other stuff and he just hasn't had time to go back to it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and this will be one I'm keeping in the collection, even though I'm not a massive horror fan. So next up for the anime collection steelbook that I got is Promare. So yes, this is a anime that is loosely based and doesn't relate to, but if you've ever seen the series Fire Force from the creator of Soul Eater, this very much mirrors that series, but this film was made before that. And essentially you have in the world, people started to kind of spontaneous combust, but they spontaneous combustion kind of came these creatures of fire, and they live by kind of creating fires. Opposite to them, you have the good guy, who essentially is a kind of mech suited fire force, and that's what their job is. It starts off with the bad guy basically being captured by the good guys, but you have like a military force who step in, and then you realize that there is actually more to what is going on. There is kind of an alternate world, and they are all kind of linked in this story, and it's very, very clever, very, very nicely done. The animation style is really, really nice. A bit unusual from what you're kind of used to, and there is non-stop action at specific points. That is, there is a lot of work on. If you like the movie Redline with the cars, this would probably be definitely up your street, I say. And even there are links, as I say, links to Fire Force a little bit, I say. So if you kind of like that theme, it is really, really great, done really well, absolutely thoroughly. So if you're into anime, I definitely would recommend getting this. So next up we have Hilary Swank's in Boys Don't Cry. This is Hilary Swank playing Hilary Swank is playing essentially a girl who wants to become a boy. It is very early on the whole scene in regards to trans and gender awareness. I would say, from what I know, please don't, if I've got this wrong, this is based on a true story. It is quite harsh. Essentially, she goes around looking like a boy, building up relationships until people find out she's kind of a girl. or she's a girl she's kind of trying to get money to have that transition, and she's in trouble with the law. Um, she then ends up kind of moving around, finding these guys to hang out with, and then falls kind of head over heels for one of these guys' love interests. They then spark a relationship, and she kind of, it's first a friendship, and she meets him and with their family and becomes that, and then it comes out that he is not Brandon, it's a she, and then there is a lot of resentment and anger and of these people, and this kind of I would say naivety, but it comes a lot harsher, and let's just say there is quite harsh things that happen to her character, leading to the point it doesn't end well at all for Hilary Swank's character. Unfortunately, this is real life. It is not good. There is actually more people that were harmed in this than it states, and there are other roles that are supposedly slightly twisted from what should be the truth. From what I've heard, again, a great role, a great film. I will keep it in my collection, not only because it's based off true events, because it is such a not only a harsh film, but is based on something that happened. And I quite like films that are based on real events and real stuff, and I enjoy reading on and finding stuff about them. And obviously, I think Hilary Swank won the best actress for this, which I don't think. I think she only got paid like 20 grand for doing this movie as well, which is quite surprising. I think I can't remember. She took a lower pay cut for some reason, but does actually quite look like a boy. And yeah, and obviously the subject matter is quite prevalent in this day and age. So I quite like having it in the collection for that reason. You know, it's always, there are always two sides to every story, and I think that you shouldn't necessarily discriminate against people because they're different. Regardless, well, there is it gets into a conflict because obviously that person is creating a false facade in this, and it misleads a lot of people, and whether, you know, so there's a lot more to it. But that's that. Boys Don't Cry. Didn't even know it was a film, just as they come across. Next, we have Unknown. So probably about the third time I've watched this, because I think I've seen it on the cinema, watched it on TV, on a DVD when I bought it, and then I think I got this upgrade from one of the guys. I can't remember, so apologies that. But yeah, it's essentially Liam Neeson goes with his wife, goes to this convention. During a visit back from the airport, or in between his journey and around the town, he's in an accident. He loses kind of or he gets knocked out. They believe he loses his memory because he doesn't kind of really remember who he is. When he goes back to where his wife was, his wife is with another person. It's a different life. You don't know what's going on. It is unknown, and then it kind of comes a reality near the end. A fun Liam Neeson film, a little bit different from his full action style one, because he does kind of have some of that training, so to speak, in this, but because of the amnesia and stuff, he doesn't quite know what's going on. So it kind of throws you a little bit here, there, and everywhere of what's going on. But I really enjoy this film. One of the far better ones. Got quite a good cast across the board, and it's quite interesting of how the plot came about and the circumstances of it. So next up, we have The Wrong House. So this is a low-budget horror movie that essentially two families finds this address where this house is trying to be sold. They both turn up quite close proximity to each other. There's these boxes on the walls that basically click it and go, you know, we're not here. This is all box. This will tell you all about the house if you want to buy it. As they're going in between this, they see a kind of figure moving out within the fields and stuff. They go out there and it disappears. What they find out then, they are somehow caught in a kind of dimensional grid around the house, that they go kind of towards the hill, and then the hill is still there and it keeps going. They cannot get too far from this. With inside the house, there is cans of like beans or some sort of food. The cupboard magically reappears each day, so they've got enough food for themselves, but it's the same thing over and over again. These two families start to go a bit crazy. There is kind of a girl turns up as well that seems to be running from something, and you kind of realize it's a weird twist horror. It's not great acting. It it's not the greatest story in the world of execution. You know, I thought some bits were all right. I'm never going to watch it again, so that will go in the discard pile. That is just, or I will plonk it down here, and that'll be one I will sell on Vinted. That's my rule now. If I watch something, if I'm not the biggest fan of it because I'm trying to cut down size, that will go there. So next up we have Under the Silver Lake. So this is Andrew Garfield. He is kind of I think he's in LA. He's essentially, or the Hollywood Hills, it would be. He's essentially hasn't got a job, running out of money, can't pay the rent. But within his apartment, he sees this young girl, kind of forms an attraction from afar from her, has an introduction with her, and goes into a house. They kind of say they will meet up the next day. When he wakes up in the morning, she's gone, her apartment's gone, and then he kind of goes down this rabbit path of trying to find where she was. In her apartment were some friends, and he sees some of them, and he starts following them to different parties that lead to these different people and these different characters. Um, all lead you on this weird and wonderful journey that you kind of think it could be in his head. You kind of think, I love Andrew Garfield. It's great acting from him. Some bits you don't necessarily see coming. It is very much a kind of weird artsy movie, but because I love Andrew Garfield and because there were some elements I really enjoyed, I will keep this in the collection. Not his greatest movie by far. Obviously, this was one of his earlier movies, but definitely a very interesting watch. Always good to have films when sometimes you can think outside of the box. So next up, we then have Inception, my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. So absolutely love this. This is a special edition, 4K, and essentially it is always fun to revisit this story. It is always good to speculate on what the ending is. When they go within a dream, it's all the connotations of it, all the stuff that they experience, that they are viewed, how it is filmed, like the rotating scenes for the hotel room where what's his name now? I don't know, Third Rock from the Sun. I can't remember his absolute name now. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, him fighting and stuff, he's just like amazing and stuff. The car going off the bridge and stuff, and how everything is built into each other, that there is a story there. And I say, even the ending and theories of what is real and isn't real, I think it's very clever. I think it is a world that is very much based on fiction, on designing, but within it, you have essentially the main character. He's the greatest kind of personality, Leonardo DiCaprio, but he's very flawed because of the issues he had with his wife, because of the kind of weakness, I would say, to speak, in his, that he allows himself to not let go of his wife because of a kind of condition that happened due to an earlier task that they were, or dream that they were in. And it essentially goes to like the human kind of core, that we don't like to let go of stuff and people, and he kind of doesn't, and that affects, it's he trying to do a job, trying to get back to his kids, but at the end of the day won't give up the thought and the love of his wife. And I really, really like that. I say, in the execution of it and just the idea of it, there's nothing like that really out there. Obviously, Christopher Nolan does do a lot of stuff like that, but I think it's great. One of Leonardo DiCaprio's by far best movies, in my opinion. Not his greatest, from my. What is your favourite Leonardo DiCaprio movie? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you want to hit that subscribe button, I will appreciate that as well. So next up, we have the third Secret Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them movie. We have the essential third incarnation of the bad guy character, that formerly played by, obviously, Johnny Depp, now played by Mads, whatever his name is, I can't remember, from the Hannibal series. And this is a great fun watch. This, I think, is almost a return to return to form for Fantastic Beasts. Fantastic Beasts 1 was great. It opened up this new world of the Hogwarts kind of mystical world. 2 failed a little bit. There was just stuff that just didn't work. This one, they were kind of resolving stuff, trying to, Ezra Miller's character kind of trying to get rid of him, kind of, but then he is a Dumbledore and the links with that and the stuff that goes on. I think the guy who plays, my mind is all like, the guy who plays Jude Law, who plays Dumbledore, is absolutely great. And obviously his brother and stuff like this. And I think as time went on near the end of stories, they start to kind of resolve this arc and they could go to places. If this had been the second movie, I think we would have had all 5. I think it was supposed to be. It's a shame it ended. It ended on quite a good film, and obviously this is the steelbook for it. And I say, not much of a focus more on Fantastic Beasts in this, but I think it did a lot to correct the issues in 2, in my opinion. So next up, one I've seen probably 3 times in the past year is Ticket to Paradise. Saw it at the movie, watched it with my wife, bought it, and then obviously because I buy it, it's on my rewatch pile and I rewatch it. There ain't much, if I buy something, it goes on my watch pile, unless, say, like as I bought Big Bang Theory season 9, I'll wait to pick up all the series before I then revisit it all, just because that's how I work. So a really fun movie. I really enjoy George Clooney and Juliet Roberts. I think they have great chemistry in this, and I think very much the changing of the 2 relationships of the kids and how they kind of come together to sabotage the kids, that then kind of brings them more together than what they had done. And it all comes down to the whole premise of, that we meet people within our lives, we interact with people in our lives, and we try to do what we think is best, but sometimes it's better to not think and not do what you feel is best, to kind of, with you trying to do something that you think is best, ends up being the opposite. And that's kind of what happens to these characters in this situation, actually reverses that in the end. But a great movie, really enjoy it. As I say, watched it 3 times in just over a year, and I think it was 2002. Actually, 3 years, apologies. 3 times I've seen it in 3 years. So I've seen it once every year. Next up, we have the ever expanding Naruto Shippuden. So this is season 9 of season 10. So I'm on the last season. I'm close to that ending, and obviously I can scratch that off, even though I've seen it before and I've read the books twice. It's been a long time since I've seen all this, and I watched it more on streaming side of things. So these are so you can find as you go along the dubbing, which is what I would sometimes watch it in, but I watch subtitles because that's what I originally watched it back in the 90s when it first came out with my friend Tim. It's really enjoyable. I'm really enjoying this. The only issue I'm finding, like Bleach, there is so much filler cut in between the stories, it is diluting it a bit. You find in some instances that they keep flashing back to older versions of the characters, and very much near the end, you're kind of recycling the same sort of story that we've seen over and over again. And I get it for nostalgia, and they're trying to delay stuff because of when it came out. They had to try and not catch up with the manga and stuff. I totally understand that. I just feel that make a bigger arc, put it here, and then do the whole story or whole story arc, and then do a load of filler, not just 1/10 of the story, filler, 1/10 of the story, filler, 1/10 of the story, filler. It just does get a bit frustrating and distracting a little bit. So maybe I think if I watch this down the line, I may cut out a lot of the filler and just try and go to it. But I'm glad we're almost near the end. It is great that they have got to the arc. Obviously, it's the fourth Great War. It's good to see Team 7 all back, and it is good to see Naruto bringing out the best in people, because that is essentially what Naruto is about. It is someone who wants something, who is an outsider, who has a lot of hate towards him, and he doesn't know why, and he just wants to be recognized and to be the strongest, but he wants to be the strongest for the good of the village, not because of himself. And I think that is very testament to people's character. So next up, as you would have seen in my meetup with the guys, Scott came along and gifted me a few Blu-rays. One of them was Stallone's Over the Top. Now, I can't remember any of this. It's been so long since I've watched it. I thoroughly enjoyed the arm wrestling watch again. It was very fun to watch him drive his truck through the big posh house, and it was, you know, essentially the connection of a dad and a son. And there are a lot of elements that, you know, or a lot of stuff happens that the granddad had obviously manipulated it a little bit, or maybe even the mum a little, so the son didn't get a true feel of what Stallone's character is or was. And then the marrying of the two and how they got to spend time together is great. And then obviously you have kind of the happy 80s. He's done it. And so there is that. So glad to have it in the collection. Thank you very much, Scott. Thank you for, you know, that will definitely stay in my collection for the rest of my life. Well, I've still got my bearings. If I lose my bearings, it's just say what people will do. But anyway, so we then move on to season 8, part 1 of CSI. So this is where we then go into a shorter series. I'm not sure if it's the writer's strike or something that's happening around this time. And we lose Sarah Side on this. She walks away. It is quite a goodbye and good luck. Is a great episode. She is a great character. And obviously the connection she had with Grissom, you feel very sad. Obviously, I know what's coming, so I'm not as sad. But it is very much, you don't realise that you've bonded so much with these characters, and even people with Sarah Side that some people don't necessarily gravitate to. I think she is a great character, and obviously doing what they do with CSIs, I'm sure in real life you get to see murder, death, and all this stuff. It is quite triggering and quite emotional wracking, and they don't get, well, in this, the depictor's not getting paid quite well, and I assume they don't in real life, and it's just the reality of that and the impact it has. But as I say, glad to watch it. Obviously, not looking forward to part 2, which will be featured in the next video. Then we have 2 other ones to streaming. So first we have on Disney, it is Predators, Killer of Killers. So I saw the trailer for this. The art style is very much like the Lord of the Rings animation that released last year, Rohan, or I can't remember what, I think it's Rohan, or I wasn't too sold on this. Going into it, I actually thoroughly enjoyed it. First, the Viking with the shields, you know, she was great. I quite like the animation. The Predator was definitely much more fleshed out as a bigger dwelling, you know, a kind of cave trolls-esque size. You know, they are bigger. They, you know, they are fast. They have these abilities through time, and obviously what their skills are and their appearances are very different in the 3 stories that all come together. But I really love the Viking one. The Samurai one is by far my favourite. I really hope that McFarlane or NECA or somebody release figures of these Predators from these different timelines. The kind of World War II bomber one was all right, but then I enjoyed the fact that these 3 are all characters that are kind of kidnapped, brought together, taken to the Predator homeworld, which you've never really kind of seen before. We've seen Predator, which is on a world. I'm not sure if it's their home world or not, but it was good to see them and kind of get a bigger sense of the world. So very, very well done across the board. I think the 3 different stories work very well. They bring a lot of elements that can entice people, so that's why I understand they've done it. And then to have this combination of where all the stories culminate together at the end, I think it's very clever. And you get to see all these Predators and they just go chaos. Whether we will get a second one or it will be a standalone, who knows? I hope we do get a release. Disney don't normally do that. Who knows? So then after that, we have Agatha all along. So I am way behind on my Disney and Star Wars series and stuff like this. And Agatha has been around, I think, for the best part of the year. I know about Wiccan going into it. I'm a big fan of the comics, so I knew that was coming. But I actually thoroughly enjoyed this series. It was a nice, fresh take that Marvel stepped away from the norm, a little bit like they did in WandaVision. You know, you took this story and these witches are coming together and they had like the different themes within the different episodes, a little bit like they had with WandaVision. I like the fact they had this very catchy song when they're all the bands. Obviously, each one of them starts dying as we go along and the silly stuff that happens. And then kind of the realization at the very end of obviously who the young lad is, obviously Wiccan, as we know, but how he's linked to it and where his mother is and all this stuff. And then obviously where Agatha is, or what kind of state Agatha is in, and how that all links together. Intrigues me enough to be happy to watch a second series. Wouldn't rush to it, but I did thoroughly enjoy it. And as a Marvel series, it was nice for them to take a sidestep, exactly like they did with WandaVision. I think, and probably why I like stuff like She-Hulk and stuff like that, just where it's something that's in the universe. There are little elements that tie it to it, but not enough that you can consider it its own entity and enjoy it for what it is. So there's that. So that is all the online stuff I've then watched. And then the final one we have is Breaking In. Again, another one I managed to pick up from my wife's mum's friends who was getting rid of stuff. Me and my wife have watched this. We really enjoyed this. Essentially, it is you have this old man. He's essentially killed, knocked down by a car and then killed. His daughter returns back to his home in the outsticks. Essentially, she returns with her kids to clear it out to sell it, but unfortunately, she returns at the same time where a group of people come into the house because they know there's money there and they want it. They kidnap the kids. She managed to escape, and it's kind of her trying to get her kids back with these killers and throw it to and fro. It's a small cast. It's a very isolated movie, but I think works very well. There are some. She's very clever, and it's not the stupid thing. Oh, why would you do this and why you do that? She does it for her kids, but she works some elements well. There are very much like biting and scratching and gouging. You know, look, would happen. Not like someone's a great martial artist or just oh, you happen to trip this guy over. I mean, one of the military guys at the very beginning obviously wasn't, even though he's got dog tags and stuff on it, he's not. He must have been some tech guy because he's not the greatest with her. But I really like it. I thought it was all brilliant. And then Gabrielle Union, I think she's really a good actress. I think she plays the role really, really well. That has been back to the watch list. Obviously, massive amount watched. Thoroughly enjoyed all of it. Some interesting titles again. Say thank you for Scott, and obviously if the guys lent me one of the other ones, and other people have donated me stuff. Obviously some great anime to knock off the list as well, and some great series like CSI. If there's anything you're watching in this video and you think I would like or didn't, apologies as well if there's been glare. Obviously the sun is very much out there, but obviously, if there is something you'd like to know, or you disagree, or you agree with it, let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below. Otherwise, I've been Cyber Screen Time. Hope you're having a lovely week, a lovely day, whatever you are doing. Hope you're having a nice time, and I should definitely see you in the next one.